Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Shayne Swift. She is the founder of Swift Life Coaching and Consultant, dedicated to empowering individuals with ADHD. With a background in education and extensive experience in life coaching, Shayne specializes in general life coaching, ADHD coaching, and education consulting. This is a brief bio about you, Shayne. Is not the full bio. The full bio will be at the end. There's a lot more to you than this. So, but my question that I love asking everyone is, how do you see yourself? Who is Shayne through your own eyes?
Wow, that's a pretty thought-provoking question, and that question has the answer to that question has recently transformed. I actually see myself as a coach, an artist, and a neurodivergent. That's how I see myself, an empowered neurodivergent, actually.
I love that. Yeah, that you added that too. Right. And for those who don't know, as I said, I mentioned off record, what is to be a neurodivergent and what is to be an empowering one or empowered one?
Well, when I think about when I found out I had ADHD, I was actually 38 years old. Now, mind you, I knew from the age of 8 in third grade that I learned differently and I didn't understand why. Um, and it took me until the age of 38 to get the right diagnosis. But once I did, you go through the stages of grief. All the things that you can think of, you're angry, you're shocked, and we don't think about those latter stages of grief where you come across new horizons, new strengths, and advocacy.
Yeah.
And I write about that. And so I'm in this stage now where I am helping others navigate their own neurodivergence. And so I call myself an empowered neurodivergent because I'm helping others along their journey through my clients, through my artwork. And it's been such a great experience to support others in their journey because we need it, especially people in the BIPOC community.
Yes, yes, absolutely. What's not to love about that too? To be an empowered one. So you help others dealing with the same situation. What is the main difference, if you can recall, from prior to the diagnosis and after? Besides grief, in your experience within life itself, day to day living, what was the change? I'm wondering if you can kind of bring this to light, the before and after diagnosis.
Yeah, so before diagnosis, I was late. It affected my personal life more than my professional life. So I was able to hold together my professional life pretty well. Um, I did have a rough start to college, a really rough start. So my first semester in college, I ended up on academic probation because I didn't know how to study. I had a 1.33 GPA, and I quickly had to figure out that I could not juggle all of these things that I had on my plate. I had a part-time job, I had a boyfriend, I had classes, I was partying, and I had to get tunnel vision in order to finish school and get off academic probation. I started teaching, and while everything was going great in my career, my personal life was falling apart. I was struggling to keep doctor's appointments and dental appointments, managing my money, um, maintaining relationships with people. I didn't understand why I didn't want to be in certain atmospheres because of the anxiety that comes with, being in places where I felt overstimulated, and I didn't understand
Right.
all of that.
Right.
And so once I got the diagnosis and I went through those stages of grief, just immediately, oh, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot makes sense to me now. This is why I was chatty Cathy in elementary school. This is why all of my report cards said Shayne is really bright, but if Shayne could just focus,
Mm.
Shayne's really creative, but, so all of these qualifying statements. This is why I excelled on projects and not worksheets. And so in my education career, I really strived to not be that teacher that just threw worksheets at students. My master's degree is in curriculum and instruction, and I chose that because I wanted to be able to reach learners like me.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. God. It's almost like knowing oneself, isn't it? Self-love, self-knowledge that leads to self-care and self-love. Right.
absolutely.
Wow. And that creates clarity. That's the whole point. And then what are is that something that needs to be treated, needs to be managed, needs to be acknowledged as it is with diagnosis, as you mentioned? But what is, because I have heard about some people that actually they take medications for it.
Well, we have different paths that we can take. Some
Right.
people take medication, and I'm one of those people that takes medication. You have stimulant medication and non stimulant medication. Some people choose to address it through diet. Some people choose to address it through coaching, which is to see someone like me. Some people
Yeah.
choose to combine some of those methods together. And so, I definitely do think about diet for myself. Not too much coffee, just confining myself to 1 cup a day, thinking about my sugar intake and the times that I eat, making sure that I'm consistent with medication, because if you are going to take it, then you do need to be consistent with it. And I did see a coach before
Uh,
I became a coach myself. So I was desperate one day. I was like, my life is falling apart, and I got on Yelp, and I found somebody and started seeing them, and I found it tremendously beneficial. So I've seen a coach twice, and I enjoyed it so much that I decided that I wanted to become a coach myself. And as one of
mm,
my clients tells me, I am the help that I didn't have growing up.
yes. So
Absolutely.
another question that comes to me: do you somehow make the connection between ADHD and trauma? Do you think that they are connected somehow?
I think that trauma plays a role. So if you've had a traumatic environment, I think it can exacerbate ADHD,
Ah,
as is in my case. So I grew up with a single parent and with a disability, and a lot of, I had to adult fairly early because I was the older sibling. And
yeah.
so that stress of being the older sibling and adulting and caring for a disabled parent who had multiple sclerosis and having undiagnosed ADHD was pretty challenging. But I look at those lessons. I do think of them as lessons because I would not be the fierce advocate that I am now if I did not watch my
Mm,
mother advocate for herself as a disabled person. And so she kind of, put that spirit in me. So if you're the underdog, quote unquote, you fight. And so I've been taught that from a very young age. I watched my mother. She used to have these things that look like parking tickets. And so when someone that didn't have a disabled sign on their license plate, she would give them to me and my sister, and we had to go put them on the windshield of that person's car. And I say, Mom, I don't want to do it. They might yell at me. It doesn't matter. They shouldn't be parked there. And so I would go and do it. And then I just got to a point where I would hand it to the person directly, because I was advocating for my mother. She deserves to be in this parking space, not you. And so that just stuck with me. And that's part of who I am now. So when I meet with my clients, I kind of support them in being, advocates in their own right, whether it's at work or if it's a parent that's advocating for their student who may have ADHD, and being an advocate, with their teachers at school.
That has to do with fairness. It's interesting, with justice and being fair. That's something that's very close to my heart for some reason too.
Well, it's very close to everybody. Anybody that has ADHD, it is very close to their heart. It just happens to be like a thing for people with ADHD. We are all about justice.
So the topic is about art, actually. But before that, so the topic is art as a pathway to self-expression and emotional well-being.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you this question before we dance around art. Gosh, what's not to love about art too? What do you feel is the purpose of the human experience? Why are we here?
That's a great question. That's a big question.
Yeah.
To connect. I think my biggest asset is relationships.
Yeah.
So wherever I go, I build relationships with people. And if I can have a positive influence and experience on someone else, then that's why I think that's what it is. So you'll find me still in touch with students that I taught several years ago. We reach out to each other, we get together. I think I got together with some kids that graduated in 2016 from high school, and they're grown men now and making six figures and driving fancy cars, but they still remember me and remember what an impact that I made on their lives as an educator. So, it was really nice to sit with them and just talk to them about, what they're doing now, and what I'm doing now, because I'm doing something different as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So art, gosh, there's so much to talk about that. So you wrote, art does not demand perfection or expertise. It invites exploration. I mean, that says it all. It's about, again, investigation, that journey. So of exploring something. And some people say that you cannot define what art is. Is that something that you resonate with you somehow, that everything could be an art? Who knows? Maybe life itself is an art. Being a human is an art.
I have my thoughts about it. I think if you generate it and it's meaningful, you've generated it with meaning and there's audience perspective, then it's art. And I think that's the criteria. That's pretty much it. And it takes all kinds of forms. And that's basically what I've been exploring through digital art. And I actually got my start actually from leaving the education realm. It was painful to depart from something I've known for 30 years
Right.
and to start working remotely.
Yeah.
And so I'm used to going in a schoolhouse for the last 30 years, seeing children, teenagers and staff, and I didn't have that anymore. And so I needed a way to kind of work through not having that anymore. So I turned to digital art, and it became a thing. And come to find out, I'm actually good at it. And I just, while I was posting my stuff on my personal Instagram page, and people were like, what what is Shayne doing over there? And I said, okay, so let me set up a different Instagram page just for this purpose. And I would say within 2 months' time, I had 1,000 followers on this
Wow.
Instagram page. And it was all these other digital artists that were appreciating my work. And so I built a whole new community of people that I talk to on a daily basis that invite me to art challenges. And I've posted work that is unfinished, so if there are
Okay.
days that, I'm not in a great mood and, I want it to reflect exactly what I was feeling, then I'll post unfinished work. Or if I'm exploring something psychological, then I may post that. Like I posted something about the id, the ego, and the super ego.
Mm.
Or if I'm talking about the shadow self and how we need to accept all facets of our personalities, or whatever it is that I'm thinking about, or just praising women. A lot of my subjects are women, and I like to portray women in various spaces and various places, but I love portraying them as strong and powerful. So I use suprematism a lot um, when
Yes.
I'm designing women. And I just really enjoy it. It's just been very liberating for me. But I noticed after doing it for maybe a month that I noticed changes in my emotional regulation. And so things that may typically upset me weren't upsetting me anymore. And so, we talk as ADHD coaches about getting into a flow state.
Nice.
And this flow state is when you're in this sustained, focused attention. And ADHDers are constantly striving to be in this flow state. And I noticed that I would be in this flow state when I was doing my art. And my husband wouldn't disturb me when I was doing it, usually because he's an ADHD, he's like, what are you doing? But when he saw that I was doing the art, he just would not come and
Mm.
interrupt me because he recognized that it was helping me process leaving, and it was helping me regulate my emotions. And it was something that I really enjoyed. So I've found a whole new passion as a result
Wow.
of this. Yeah. And I'm
Gosh.
starting to, support my clients in doing it as well, because artistic expression is really important for ADHDers, because studies have shown that ADHDers are super creative, and that they should explore their creative energies in whatever form it is, whether it's dance or music, yeah, whatever it is.
Wow. So, do you actually feel, let's say, something happening within the brain, like what you described, the flow state? Is that a? Could you use the concept of peace, like inner
Yeah,
peace?
absolutely. I'm calm, I'm peaceful. It almost feels meditative, because
Yeah.
the only thing that I'm focusing on is the present moment and the art that I'm making. I'm not thinking about anything else.
Mm. So I wanted to bring into the conversation a book that you mentioned by Hilary Sators, I think her name is.
Sartre.
Embracing their divergent beauty, celebrating the artistry of being true to oneself. I love that. Celebrating being true to oneself. So when it comes to that specific, some concepts just call my attention. I love concepts. Being true to yourself. So do you feel like this is what happens when you creating art with AI? You being true to you? Is that what it is too?
Yeah, I think I'm being true to myself. I also think that when I left education, and it's not that my students and the staff didn't know that I had ADHD, because they
Right.
did. Um, I basically, it's almost like I had a neurodivergent coming out party with the rest of the world. So the staff has known, in the spaces that I've worked, the students have known in the spaces that I worked, but I don't think it was just general knowledge. Of course, my family
Right.
knows,
Right.
but I just decided to just take it a step further and just say to the world, I'm neurodivergent and proud of it, because I know I wouldn't be the creative soul that I am
Mm.
if I didn't have ADHD. I probably wouldn't be able to build relationships like I do, especially because I use humor, and I'm pretty intuitive. So I use a lot of intuition and humor to get to know people. I'm very observant. Like, I wouldn't be able to do those things if I wasn't me. And so
Mm.
when I read that book, I've always been fascinated by art. Most of my friends are artsy, including my husband, who can sing, who can draw.
Yeah.
And, I didn't know, I said, why do I hang around all of these artsy people and I'm not an artist? And I'm like, well, maybe I am.
Right. Right. Right.
But I've always encouraged others, to be that person, but never have encouraged myself to be that person. But others have always said, oh, you're so creative. But I've never really explored it in any medium in particular. I mean, I've been in like a choir before in grade school, and I've taken art class, but never have explored what it means to actually produce it in any kind of meaningful way, except for, being in dance class in my youth.
Right. So do you feel that this is for everyone? That anyone can be creative, anyone can dance with art and create art?
I just think it depends on your particular genre. Absolutely. So I was working with, well, I had actually hosted a BIPOC event just to talk about the intersectionality of ADHD and being a person of color, because it's really challenging. And as we were talking, just talking about how family feels about it, and stuff that happens at work, and just societal pressures in our relationships with the medical community, I gave like 3 wellness tips at the end of that session, things that we can do immediately. And one of those things was to lean into the arts in some kind of way. And one person in particular, like, really leaned into that advice and started stand-up comedy.
Ah, yeah, I read
And I
that.
just loved it. Like, so the next time I had an event, he got on and talked about the fact that he had been doing it and he really
Mm.
enjoys it. He's writing it, he's going to clubs and practicing it. Um, I started working with him for a few sessions on, keeping him accountable to, actually honing his craft. He's in India with his family right now, but when he gets back, we're back on the books again to talk about, where are you with practicing this right now? And I just think it's so important that we have those outlets, especially because we're, someone with ADHD may be really stressed in other facets of their lives. We need these creative outlets.
Right, right. So there are many, we can do be creative in so many ways. And I love the comedy part of it. And I was just wondering, God, that's something that I could never do.
Me neither.
You are always thinking like, gosh, to be funny, that would be just yeah, not something that I could do. But there's so many things. The AI, so AI generators. You mentioned some tools called, I think it's Dell, Dalle.
Yeah, so that's Chat GPT's version, but for people that want to be really fancy, Midjourney is the platform to go to. A lot of people get on that. I like that one because they have community guidelines. Um, and so, you can only create but so far before the guidelines say, nope, that was inappropriate.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see. Yeah. So
yeah,
that's a good suggestion here, a tip, right? Yeah, that's good to know.
yeah,
So that's one way. Stand-up comedy, as we mentioned. Journaling is another one. You mentioned daily doodles too. I like them. I'm always doing them.
yeah.
Group sessions. That's interesting. Group sessions, workshops, classes, being part of a community. That's interesting that in a way that's part of creativity. So talk to me for a moment about that, because I didn't think about, community group sessions as being creative, but I would love to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, so I've been hosting some free events. And what's been nice about those is some of the same people have returned,
Yeah.
and we're sort of forming community as a result of that. But I'm also holding some group sessions in January as well. And what's important about the group sessions is you get an opportunity to talk to other people who are in the same situation. And so when I'm coaching people one on one, they start to think that they're the only person going through something or through this particular thing.
Right.
And groups help to normalize, but you can also explore art in these groups and get different perspectives. So I love seeing what other people design, like around the same subject. It's really interesting to see. So, for example, I'm doing a challenge right now online, and the artist that's hosting it just provides three things. And so it's lime green, zebra, and wheel. And you have to create something
Wow.
based on that theme.
All right.
So
Wow.
you could do, yeah, so you could do a lime green zebra, riding a bicycle, or,
Yes.
you could come up with a whole bunch of different things. It could be something
Yeah.
with a car. And so, what you come up with could be really interesting. And, being in a group setting and seeing what everybody is able to produce. So if that's a project, for example, and we come back in a week to display what people have come up with, that's a great conversation to have, to see what inspired you to do it that way, because you have all these different ways you could do it. You have all the different art genres, I
Yeah.
decided to pick the Victorian period to do mine, or I decided to use optical illusion. And so it's kind of pie in the sky with your imagination. And that's the fun part.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny how when I think about art, creativity, I can't help it but think about, life itself, how creative it is. Like we mentioned, we briefly talked about, I think I mentioned about nature, how creative it is. All kinds of flowers, all kinds of plants,
Right.
and the landscape. It's just so beautiful. Even if you travel, you will know that. Even the landscapes in the different countries, they're so different, the way people live. So that's how diverse and creative life itself is. And I don't see you and I and everyone else, all the other humans, being anything different than that. I think I really feel like we are life itself. We're just kind of, and we are now, for some reason, we stayed away from that truth and we got lost somehow. And
Mm-hmm.
then we believe it to be something else apart from nature, apart from life. And I don't know how that happened, but I feel like we are coming back to it, to be, to the meaning of being human again. What is to be fully human and fully divine? What is the
Mm-hmm.
meaning of that? And when I speak to people like you, that's what comes to mind. It's like, this is it. Creativity. It's humans who are using their true power. to
Yeah.
create something beautiful out of chaos.
Yeah.
I think she said that, Hillary, right? She said,
Yeah.
isn't it what she says? Art is a language that speaks to emotions we cannot name, creating beauty from chaos.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's so true.
It is.
So true. And she said something else that caught my. I mean, this book is amazing. I have to read it. I mean, I never heard about her, but thank you, yeah, for bringing her into my light. So she also said, you say it that way, as Hilary Sator reminds us, art does not erase struggles; it illuminates the beauty within them. I mean, that's just incredibly wise. If we can just see it that way, kind of shift that perspective, those lens through which we see life in ourselves. How can, like you said in the beginning, lessons, how can I learn from this?
Yeah.
And we can be kind and gentle with it and even slow with it. It's okay. It doesn't have to be anything fast. Do you feel that way, Shayne, when you in flow doing your art, that time slows down and you just,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. It definitely slows down. Yeah. And that's something I have to convey with clients, that small wins are good.
Yeah.
And we spend a lot of time on that. Small wins are good wins. And that we need to acknowledge them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're almost at the end. Talk to me about the creativity as a science-backed strategy. So what is the scientific evidence that creativity is something that can be helpful to mental health and all kinds of struggles that we might go through?
Well, I think the case has been made because we have art therapy now, which is
Yeah.
something I definitely would
Yeah.
love to explore. I'm a serial learner.
Good.
So I've been looking at these expressive art coaching programs, because I would love to learn the technique, behind it being a part of what I do as a coach. And we know that it helps with emotional well-being. We know it helps with self-awareness. And I think largely, you know, those two big ones are the ones that I feel like I've spent the most time in, when I've done my art. And I think it's just been helpful in terms of healing. It's given me something else to focus on, but I've also been able to process my emotions through diving into the art. And my thought process with offering wellness group coaching in January is really about um, projecting forward, solution based stuff that we can do.
Right.
Whether it's making a joy folder, I like doing those. The first thing I would put in my joy folder is a video of my cat in this Christmas bag and him,
Yes.
poking his paw out.
Yeah. That sounds like
I
fun.
love seeing it.
Ah.
Or, creating a piece of art that inspires you,
Right.
to regulate your emotions, on a daily basis, something that you could carry on your phone or print out and take with you and hang in your office, or sit at your desk if you work remotely.
Yeah.
But something to remind you, like the mandala you have back
Oh,
there. That's a
yes.
beautiful
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
But something to remind you, to ground yourself, when you're angry or when you're anxious, those kinds of things.
Yes.
And, with ADHDers in particular, when we're encountering things like rejection sensitive dysphoria, we're really sensitive to criticism. It can be constructive criticism, but it's very upsetting for us. And how do you deal with it in the moment? It may be, looking at something like what you've created and just reminding yourself in that moment, to
Mm.
be in that present moment, remind yourself of something good, so that you can navigate those tough emotions that might be attached to whatever it is that you're hearing. And of course, reminding yourself that it's not personal and that emotions are chemicals and they only last 90 seconds, unless you talk about it and continue to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me go back. You mentioned the upcoming events and programs. So you host them January. Is that these workshops? Are you hosting them in the group sessions throughout the year as well, Shayne, or just in January?
I'm definitely host some more, but I am just getting started with groups, so we'll see how January goes. And I definitely would love to do some more because I think there's a lot of power in numbers, and when people come together and can see other people going through the same struggles, then it's helpful
Mm,
for people to not feel isolated, in their
yes.
struggles. Yeah. So I definitely will host some more. And I'm actually hosting a course on OutSchool for teens, so that they can learn Midjourney as a tool for wellness as well. But that starts in January as well.
Okay.
Yeah, because we have a lot of teens with ADHD that need support as well. And they love doing stuff digitally. And if we can learn to do it responsibly,
Mm. Yes. 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 Artistically,
yeah, and
therapeutically. I love
artistically,
that. Yeah. That's,
absolutely.
yes. That's, you see, that's a beautiful initiative too, right? Creative initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea too for teenagers and children. So, okay, you have January, but then this might expand into the something that can happen throughout the entire year.
Yes. And I'm always one-to-one coaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then your services, ADHD coaching, neurodivergent creativity, art and self-expression, emotional and well-being strategies, ADHD support groups, task initiation for ADHD, wellness focused coaching, AI art for ADHD, comedy for self expression, ADHD workshops, as you mentioned, managing ADHD emotions, ADHD and resilience, creativity in neurodivergent communities, ADHD friendly strategies, and mindfulness for ADHD. Gosh, that's amazing. How many services? And a lot of times, do you blend them? How do you, when you have a client that is just coming, a new client, how do you know what method to apply? Is that something that you talk to the client about it, or you just kind of intuitively know?
Yeah. So, because I have the education background, I'm all about assessments first.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I like to provide an executive functioning assessment to find out which of the four areas, well, all four are usually impacted, but I like to find out how much they're impacted. And I also I'm also certified as a motivators assessor. And the motivators assessment is to find out the why behind behaviors and why people
Mm,
make the decisions that they do. So
mm,
there's seven motivators. So, for example, one of the motivators is aesthetics. I am very high on the aesthetics motivator. I'm up at the eccentric level.
oh. Wow.
So, that's why I dye my hair. That's why I have an eyebrow piercing. This is why I'm like super into art and creativity. This is probably why I have not one white wall in my house. And so, it's a need for me.
Mm,
And
mm,
so, if I don't have that in my work life or in my personal life, then I'm probably suffering. And so knowing these things about myself and all the other seven motivators, other six motivators rather, because they work together,
right.
knowing those things about myself helps me to know like what's best for me in terms of like what I need in my work environment. But it also helps me to know the things that I need to work on as well. And so I've been able to administer this assessment to my clients, and it helps them to be a lot more self-aware.
Right.
So case in point, I had a client who he's gotten a better job since we started working together, and he's really appreciative of that. But he's not really in the field that he wants to be in, and he's just dead set on in going into another field. I said, well, how about we see if that's the field you really need to be in based on what drives you.
Mm-hmm.
And so after taking the assessment, he's like, okay, I think I need to rethink the field that I was thinking about, because his theoretical motivator is really high. And that kind of didn't jive with the field that he wanted to go into. And so now he has an opportunity to rethink his decision, and think about another area under the umbrella of that field, which is health informatics.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it helps people make better decisions, but also get to know themselves better so that they can better plan, make better decisions about their futures as a result. So I love doing that with clients, because it's eye opening.
Yes. Wow, that sounds very enlightening to me. It goes back to self-knowledge again. By
Yes.
knowing oneself, we can just live a life that's so much more in alignment with that truth, with our own
Yes.
truth. That's powerful. So yeah, I love that, the 7 motivators. I think I never heard about it.
Yeah, so it's something that you can pair with DISC, and I chose not to get certified in DISC initially because I'm working with ADHDers,
Right.
and I thought motivators was a more important assessment that I be certified in so I can serve my clients. But I would love to be certified in DISC as well.
Right. Gosh, you see your curiosity. I love that.
Yeah.
I love your passion, your love for learning. See, that's curiosity. Ah, yes, I love that, Shayne. Thank you. Thank you so much for being you. Thank you for embracing that and passing that to others. I mean, that's the gift. It feels to me truly that we all come here with unique gifts from the divine, from life itself, from the universe, and then our job is to give that gift away. And somebody
Yes.
said that, right? I know there's a quote from somebody. It really feels that way, like finding out what the gift is so we can just pass that on. And that's what you're doing. So thank you so much for being curious enough to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thank you. Gosh, that resonates with the heart. So I want to mention your website is swiftlife.com, life with Y.
Okay.
So,
Mhm.
yeah. So, but I'll have a clickable, so it's easy just to go there and click. So we're almost at the end. Is there anything that you left unsaid, Shayne, for today's conversation?
I love my job. I really do. I didn't know what the term was, but I happened to be looking at something the other day, and it's called the encore career,
Um,
where you transition to the most meaningful thing you've ever done in your life. And that's what it is. I'm in my encore career now. Yeah. I loved education. I really did. But this is top notch
hmm. Yes.
in terms of meaningful. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Because it resonates with your truth, with your heart. Yeah. With your
Yes.
entire being.
Yeah.
That is truly beautiful. That's what we need to see more in this reality, in our physical reality, the alignment, yeah,
Yeah.
of the inside with the outside.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for the courage too, for having that courage. I know you have compassion to do that too, to share, but it takes a lot of courage to go deeper, to investigate, to explore our own truth and to live it. It's
Yeah.
just not it's something that takes courage and effort and a lot more in between. But thank you so much. And
Thank you.
wow, it has been amazing to share this moment. You see, and I feel like this is art for me because I lose track of time, and that's how I know like I have to look at the clock because I could just stay here forever and then just not even think about time if I could. So thank you so much again for your presence, and we'll talk soon. Bye for
Thank
now,
you.
Shayne. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.